putting them into envelopes and mailing them out that way. I'll keep them no more than 3 sheets, excuse me.
Sandy, how about emailing them?
I don't do that.
No, not everybody, but some
Yeah,
do.
no, I don't scan it, I don't put it on, because, no, I don't.
And if you save for 3 pages, it's under it's 1 ounce. So
Yes, it's under that rate, yes. Now, we also recently lost one of our members, Helen Esty, and her services are being held right now in Tully. So, right now, I'd like to have a moment of silence in memory of Helen, please. Thank you. Okay, now this meeting is adjourned, and now Chuck Kuchar, on with the program.
Okay, well, thank you, folks, for coming out on this not-so-good day. Appreciate that. And as you know, we like to have a variety in our programming, and we certainly have that. We like to have good stories and good storytellers, and also people who know what they're talking about and get the story right with research. We've got that today. It's going to be a great program. You're going to see. Coming up next, on February 7th, the first meeting on February is Catherine Landis. She is a graduate student at ESF, and I don't know a lot about this. She will discuss historic plants found in central New York. Can you add something?
Barbara Rivette was the one who gave me the name, because she'd been to Catherine's program and highly recommended it. So I tried researching to find out how to get a hold of Catherine. Well, come to find out, my neighbor Robin, who had given us a program before,
Okay.
Robin said, since she's an ESF professor, she said, oh yes, Catherine is a grad student of mine. So she got the information, and that's how I was able to contact Catherine.
Okay. Do you know any more? I mean, is this about just eating these things or just looking at them?
No, I don't know any more information about that.
We'll find out more and tell you. I'm very happy to say that so many people in our organization have email, and this makes our job so much easier and cheaper. And we've got only about 20 or so that either don't have email or I don't know what the email address is, and so I mail them things, and that costs a little more money, but at any rate. So we will find out more about this and tell you. Our speaker today, Cheryl Pula, my wife and I have heard some of your talks before, and she tells me that now she's got maybe a couple of hundred in the case there, and
110.
110, I exaggerated. So we could stay here a long time. But she's really, as a career as a librarian, accessing information, putting them together into slide collections and so forth. So we really look forward to this. And the one today is about the Hope Diamond. And Cheryl has this in her presentation. You probably can't see that too well, but this is a diamond that is over 44 carats in its final form here. And it's also, I guess, can be viewed at the Smithsonian. Have you seen it? Is it really impressive?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Have you told Dave you might like one?
You would want it anyway.
Well, now we know, sorry.
Too ostentatious.
At any rate, Cheryl, as a librarian and giving talks in schools and talks in libraries and groups like this, has put together a very impressive amount of stories and in very, very fine form. So tonight, she is talking about the Hope Diamond. Turn it over to you.
Hopefully you can hear me.
all right?
Yes.
All right. I want to apologize ahead of time because I was a foreign language major in undergraduate school, and there's a lot of French in this, and I didn't take French. I took German, Russian, Polish, and Spanish. So I missed the French, so my pronunciations may not be the best, so just kind of bear with me. I never could figure out a language where they put letters on the end that they don't pronounce. But hey, today we're going to be talking about the Hope Diamond, okay? And as far as we know, this was formed maybe billions of years ago beneath the earth as a result of volcanic activity, lava, that kind of thing. And it seems odd that probably the most notorious gem in world history was a result of a volcanic eruption. So what I'm going to do is just kind of go through some little facts here so you can kind of give you a background on this whole thing. The first thing I call is mineral facts. As far as we know, there's about 2,000 known identified minerals on the earth. Okay? Fewer than 100 are gemstones that you can use for jewelry. And we're talking like, diamonds, emeralds, sapphires, that kind of thing. Most precious are diamonds, rubies, sapphires, and emeralds, in that order. All four are harder than steel. Diamonds are the only gems that can cut glass. It's from the Greek word adamas, which means unconquerable. That's because it's so hard. They're formed deep inside the earth, as I say, like through volcanic activity. And they're made of only one element, carbon. That's the same kind of thing that's formed like when you use your barbecue grill, in the summer and all this stuff, you get that black residue, that's carbon too. So a diamond is made of one element, and that's carbon. It cannot be scratched. So if your honey gives you a diamond and you go home and you scratch it, sorry, it's not the real thing. And it can be shattered, but it can be shattered by a hammer. So it's harder than steel, but it can be shattered by a hammer. And it can burn. It's carbon. Carbon burns, right? It will not dissolve in acid. So if you have somebody who's trying to destroy a diamond, you can't do it by putting it in a vat of acid. And it takes millions of years to form, just like fossils and that kind of thing do. And we believe the Hope is over 70 million years old. So if you've gone to the Smithsonian and you've seen it, that's a lot of world history that's passed since that thing was formed. And as I say, it's a product of a volcanic eruption, just like this one that you see here. Has anybody been to Hawaii, seen a volcanic eruption? It's really impressive. I went there in '81, and my mother looked down at a Kilauea volcano and said, "That thing's smoking." And the guy said, "Ah, it's erupted in years." It erupted the next day, and it's been erupting ever since. I always told my mom that she screwed up Pele, the volcano goddess, somehow. They got mad. So the lava is forced up through the cracks in the earth, and it comes up and it solidifies and forms an element called kimberlite. And it's from kimberlite that the diamonds come. And this is what a diamond looks like in the rough. If I picked that up, it wouldn't mean anything to me. Obviously, you have to be a gem collector to know that that's a diamond. They're glassy, they're rough, they have no distinctive shape. They don't get that until later on. And they're recognizable only after they've been mined. So chances are you can't just walk around and pick one of these things up. Though there was an instance when that happened, and I'll get into that. Now, diamonds are rated by the 4 C's, as they call them. Color, clarity, cut, and carats. And that is the way you spell carrots, not like the vegetable. The color is the hue of the stone, what color it is. Most stones are yellowish, or like light topaz color, to white, white being the clear ones, that we're familiar with. The rarer colors are worth more money. That's why the Hope Diamond is worth so much. And examples of these that are worth a lot more money would be this one, the Dresden Diamond, which is green, as you can see. The Tiffany, which is topaz color. And the Florentine, which is also a lighter topaz color than the Tiffany. Clarity is the purity of a gem. The most expensive and the most valued are the flawless diamonds. They're the ones that don't have any little pieces of, carbon stuck in them or any kind of imperfections in them. There's no markings. Again, it's pure. There are no carbon spots. and no other imperfections. And those are the ones that are worth the most money. One example is this one, the Cullinan diamond, which is a white diamond, and as you can see, it's totally clear. So almost, to me, diamond almost looks like a piece of glass. You know, so I wouldn't be very good to figure out what the diamond was worth. Though if I knew that, I probably would. The cut is a diamond shape. That's after it's been cut by a jeweler. And it brings out the gem's natural color, its iridescence. India was the first country to grind stones to create a shine on them. So if anybody ever asked you who was the first ones, it was India. And they were the ones who invented the polishing and shaping wheel. A lot of times you see guys on TV polishing and shaping a diamond. Well, the Indians also invented the way to do that. That was in the early 1300s. So they've been doing this for quite a while. And here are some of the examples of the facets. The facets are those little like surfaces on the gem that reflect the color and bring out the brilliance of the diamond. And this is the one that we're most familiar with. This is a brilliant cut. And that's usually what most of your engagement rings and things like that are. And here's just some more various cuts of diamonds from the brilliant up in the upper left-hand corner that we're the most familiar with. I like this one down here. Looks like a policeman's badge. But there are all different kinds of cuts that you can use for diamonds. Carats is the weight of the diamond. It comes from the word carob, from the carob tree. And 1 carat equals the weight of 1 seed from a carob tree. So 1 ounce equals 142 carats. So if you have a 1 ounce diamond, it also weighs the same as 142 carob seeds, in case you ever want to know that. So the first diamonds were located in India. They were affordable, obviously, only by royalty, since they were the only place that they could be found at that time. So only the wealthy could afford them. In 1725, however, diamonds were discovered in Brazil, but they were of a poorer quality. So they were getting a little less expensive if you brought the Brazilian diamonds, but if you bought the ones from India, they were still quite expensive. They were of poorer quality than the Indian diamonds. And in 1866, Erasmus Jacobs was on his farm in South Africa. It was near the Orange River when he noticed this little shiny pebble in the water, and he took it to his sister, and she said, "Oh, that's kind of cool." So they put it up on their mantelpiece and used it kind of as a conversation piece. So after a while, a friend of his came in and said, "You know, that's a really odd-looking stone. You probably should take it and have it appraised, see what it is." So he took it, and it was appraised. It was a 21-carat diamond. If the gold rush in California was a big deal, the diamond rush in South Africa was even bigger. Thousands and thousands of prospectors descended on South Africa with the idea of getting rich. They staked out claims like they did out west, you know, with the gold mines and the silver mines. And these were called finds. So you went, you thought you found some diamonds, you staked out your little area, and it was called a find. If diamonds were located, it was called a deposit. So towns, just like out in the Old West, sprang out overnight because of all these diamonds that they were finding. And within 20 years, South African mines turned out 3 million carats of diamonds per year, all from that one little find that the guy made along the Orange River. The De Beers brothers were farm owners in South Africa, and people would cut across their territory trying to find diamonds. They'd even squat on their farm to see if they could find anything. So the De Beers brothers got tired of these people coming and looking for gems on their property. So what they did was they sold off their property. And then we're going to get out of here, we're going to move, you know. And they moved elsewhere to get away from all these people. Well, who did they sell it to? They sold it to this guy named Cecil John Rhodes. He was an Englishman who came to South Africa to join his brother who was already there prospecting for diamonds. Now, Rhodes was a good businessman, and he didn't just start digging. He went to all these different claims and these deposits and figured out what they all had in common, what he had to look for to find these diamonds. So what he did was he took all that, and he went around, saw the telltale signs of diamonds in these various places, and bought up all these little small finds, in addition to the De Beers property. And he found out that one of the things they had in common was this weird looking blue soil. If they found blue soil, chances are there were probably diamonds there. So all these little places that he bought up, including the De Beers farm, had this blue soil on it. He started digging on the De Beers property and found the largest deposit of diamonds in the world. Talk about a guy who knew what he was doing, right? He named the deposit for the owners of the land, which led to the foundation of the De Beers Company that we know today. De Beers, for years and years and years, controlled the price of diamonds all over the world. And that didn't sit well with too many people who were in other places other than South Africa. At this point, there were new mines being found in Australia and Russia in the Soviet Union. And they didn't want to have to deal with De Beers. They wanted to set their own diamond prices. But because De Beers had the monopoly, they couldn't do that. And they figured it was unfair that one company should be able to control all the prices and the supply. Because De Beers would only let Australia, South Africa, and these other countries release so many of their diamonds to the market per year. Of course, they wanted it for their diamonds. As far as we know, according to scientists, no more diamonds are being formed. So what there is what we've got. The last kimberlite producing volcanic eruption was 30 million years ago. And of course, it's a challenge now to find those that have not yet been discovered. So now we're going to get into the blue diamond, as it was called. Okay. As far as we know, it came from Golconda, India. Remember, India is where the diamonds first came from, in a place called the Kollur mine. It was a triangular shaped stone and weighed 112 3/16 carats. Now, if you've seen the Hope, and it's 44 point something carats, I think 44.5 or 6, it's about this big. Can you imagine one that was 112 carats? You know, like over twice that size? And it had, what made it interesting was that it had this deep blue violet color to it, which made it very, very rare. And according to the legend, it was located in the forehead of a statue of the goddess Sita. Which brings us to this guy, Jean-Baptiste Tavernier. Here's where we go with my bad French. He was a diamond merchant and a businessman, and he made a trip to India in 1642. Can you imagine what it must have been like going from France to India in 1642? It wasn't an easy thing to do. But he was an adventurer, and he was interested in all kinds of unusual gems. And he heard about a story about the ruler of India maybe having some really different and unique gems. And he was interested in going there and seeing if maybe he could buy some of them. The guy he had to deal with was this guy, Emperor Aurangzeb, who was a real honey. He was the Mughal, or the leader of India, a member of the Mughal Empire. Was savage and ruthless. And his forebears originally came from Mongolia in 1250, and they're the ones who founded the Mughal Empire in India. And over the years, they had gathered tremendous riches from all these different countries that they conquered, and much of their territory included most of India. And he had, by this time, accumulated a renowned jewel collection that supposedly had all these fabulous jewels. And they were all plundered, of course, from the previous Rajas, or rulers of India. He had a very extensive collection, and would have taken the gemologist 14 years to go through all those gems and rate them and tell them what he was worth. He didn't really care what they were worth, he owned them. The collection, at this point, probably had never been seen by a European. That's what Tavernier was going there to do. He was going there to check this thing out. It also contained what was called the Peacock Throne, which was a very, very famous chair that was used by the rulers of India. And it contained supposedly a very special diamond, and that's what he was going there to see, is the special diamond. And that was what we know is the Kohinoor diamond. And that's the one that you see there. Kohinoor in Indian means light of the world. And he was hoping to be able to see it and maybe buy it, but he knew it was a long shot. He probably wouldn't be able to do that. Now the emperor had a reputation, as I mentioned. He was cruel but kind. It's kind of an oxymoron. He killed 3 of his brothers in order to attain the throne. Evidently, he was the youngest of the group, so he knew he was going to get it, so the best way to do it was get rid of the guys ahead of you, right? He imprisoned his father, Shah Jahan, because Jahan said, you're killing off your brothers, I'm not going to let you inherit the throne. So he throws him in jail. Then he beheaded another one of his brothers, Dara, and that left the throne with no legal heir, because since he was the youngest, he legally couldn't inherit. So that's why he killed off his brothers, and his father wouldn't give it to him. So he decided to take the throne by force, which is what he did. He kind of, did this coup thing and took the throne by force. Now, one of the claims to fame of the whole Aurangzeb family, if you will, was his father, Shah Jahan, had built a lasting memorial to his wife who died, and we know that today is the Taj Mahal. So it was his, Aurangzeb's mother who was buried in the Taj Mahal. So there's kind of a connection to the Hope Diamond, to the Taj Mahal, which we'll get into, okay? So, Tavernier takes along some bribes with him so he can get the Kohinoor diamond. He takes along this ornate brass belt that had all kinds of gems and stuff encrusted in it, a battle axe encased in gold and encrusted with jewels all over the place. The emperor's collection already had thousands of gems of various sizes and colors. The peacock throne, which was also covered with pearls, diamonds, 116 emeralds, and 108 rubies. 26,733 gems all total, just in the peacock throne. And the Kohinoor diamond, which was also on. So that's what he wanted, is that diamond. So, Tavernier has already been told, no, he can't have the Kohinoor. A palace slave approaches him and says, I know one that's even better than the Kohinoor. And Tavernier says, so what makes it so special? He says, well, it's blue. But it's not a diamond, it's a sapphire. So Tavernier is intrigued. He wants to know more about this thing, so he goes to look at it for himself. And he makes a drawing of it. And this is what it is. You can see he weighs it out at 112 and 3/16 carats. And that's what it looks like. And he calls it blue. He doesn't call it violet or anything. He says it's a blue. And he realizes it's not a sapphire, it's a diamond, which makes it even more rare. Now, the legend has it that Hope was in the head of the statue of Sita, the Hindu goddess. Supposedly, he stole it from the head of the statue in order to get it. Now, we do know that there are some other diamonds that have been stolen from the heads of statues. One was called the Idol's Eye, the Orlov diamond, and that was owned by Catherine the Great at one time of Russia. And the slave said, now look, if you steal this, you're going to get bad luck because of this, because it belongs to the goddess. Tavernier said, I don't believe in that kind of stuff, so let's go for it. Let's just get this thing. So he gets it. He's on his way back to France, because he didn't get the Kohinoor, but he's got this one that's even better. He's aboard the boat, writing in his journal, when several men enter the room, and they rob him. They took everything from India that he acquired there, including an oriental rug that he got, but they didn't get the blue diamond. Why not? Because he sewed it into the lining of his clothing, because he knew how valuable it was. So they got everything else except that. So the slave says, see, I told you, it's the beginning of the bad luck because you stole that gem from Tavernier, but they didn't get it, did they? And that's worth more than everything that they took. So he returns to France, where we get to Louis XIV. This is in 1668. He purchases the diamond from Tavernier, and it becomes part of the French crown jewels. He purchased it along with 44 diamonds and 1,122 smaller stones, the equivalent of what nowadays would be about $180,000. Of course, now it would be a lot more than that. So, Tavernier is made a nobleman by the king for getting him this blue diamond. His fortune is built from him by a nephew who steals it all from him. Okay? So he loses his entire estate. What does he do? At the age of 84, he leaves for India again. Maybe now he can get the Kohinoor. Right? He gets as far as Moscow, Russia, and goes out for a walk and is mauled to death by a pack of wild dogs. Louis XIV, who has the diamond now, is known as the Sun King, because he has such a radiant personality. And Louisiana, the state, is named after him, by Robert Sieur de la Salle. So Louis was a party animal. He loved to show off all the goodies he had, especially to the people who didn't have that kind of stuff. And he had just a waistcoat or a vest that contained 123 diamonds, 369 jeweled buttonholes. And he had a sword alone that had 131 diamonds on it. He came into the possession of the blue diamond, which was now being known as the French blue. Sir Patel, who was the court jeweler, cut it into a triangular heart-shaped stone weighing 67.5 carats. In other words, he took about half of it away in order to shape it into this heart-shaped thing. And it was known as the blue diamond of the crown. He fashioned it so it could be worn on a necklace or a neck ribbon, so that the king could show it off. And Louis owned it for 47 years. Now, at one point, he gave it to a friend of his, Madame de Montespan, so that she could wear it. But he decided that he wasn't going to do that anymore. Then this guy enters the picture, Nicolas Fouquet. Fouquet was the finance minister of France. And he decided, without getting the king's permission, to borrow the diamond and wear it to a party one night to impress the king with what good taste he had. So Louis arrested him for embezzlement. I mean, even though he was going to give the diamond back, he arrested him for embezzlement because he didn't have permission, right? So the king takes possession of the diamond back again, and Fouquet is sentenced to prison. And he ends up serving 15 years in the Fortress Pignerol, which is near the French-Italian border. Now, the interesting thing about him, as he dies in prison, that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is that there's a theory that he might have been the famous man in the Iron Mask, who was at Fortress Pignerol for 15 years because the King of France arrested him and threw him in jail. So it's very possible that he might be the man in the Iron Mask, but we don't know for sure. If you want to know, you'll have to see my other program about the man in the Iron Mask. So Louis ruled with a harsh iron hand in France. His son died after he acquired the French blue. His daughter died. And then he died a slow, horrible death from brain green in 1750. But remember, he had it for 47 years. So, I mean, over 47 years, weird things are going to happen. Right? So the diamond passes to his son, Louis XV. You see there, and aren't you glad, guys, you don't have to dress like that anymore? He didn't prove to be a very great ruler. He'd rather go hunting than rule his empire, kind of like his dad did. So he had the blue diamond reset by a jeweler into another of the crown jewels called the Golden Fleece. And you can see it there. It's in the French colors, red, white, blue, just like ours. And the Order of the Golden Fleece was founded in France to denote chivalry and the use of chivalry. And I find it interesting, that thing on the bottom is like a lamp. Of course, that's why it's called the Golden Fleece, I guess. But it stayed with Louis XV, and only he could wear this thing. Okay? So what happened to him? Well, in 1774, he got smallpox on a hunting trip and died a horrible death from the disease. The gem now passed to his son, Louis Auguste, who became Louis XVI. Who just happened to be married to an Austrian princess named Marie Antoinette. It was a marriage of convenience and politics. At this time, the Europeans, married off each other to the royalty to keep the royal lines going. And France and Austria were not exactly on friendly terms, so they got married because she was Austrian, he was French, to kind of seal a treaty between the two countries, so they weren't fighting all the time. However, even though Austria and France weren't fighting anymore, the French were fighting among themselves. The peasants got restless under the oppressive monarchy rule, and Marie and Louis were known to squander millions of francs on parties and extravagant jewelry, on building palaces and things like that. Now, of course, she's famous for saying, "Let 'em eat cake." Supposedly, she was out riding one day, and the peasants were rioting because they couldn't afford bread. So she asked her driver, why are they doing that? Why are they protesting? And he said, well, ma'am, they can't afford bread. And she said, well, let them eat cake. Actually, what she said was let them eat brioche, which is a form of bread, only a little fancier. We do know now that she never said that. It was somebody else. Okay. But she's credited with it. So by 1789, France was bankrupt. The taxes, of course, kept rising on the little people. We know how that works, right? And the taxes were used to go for the royal lifestyle, for their parties and their lavish clothes and all this kind of thing. And Marie often wore the diamond in public, kind of, show it off. And this, of course, caused riots all over the place because here she is, she's got this blue diamond and all this, and they have nothing. So the people became more and more destitute. And the court jewelers decided that since the only people in the country who had money were the royalty, that they were going to create a magnificent necklace for the queen. And they bought up all the diamonds they could find, and they made this necklace, but Marie didn't want it. She said, no, I don't want it. Take it away. So a woman, who was one of the ladies in waiting, approaches these guys and says, I can sell the necklace. And they said, well, go ahead, because we're in a hole. We need the money. So she sold off all the diamonds to other parties. They broke up the necklace. And she pocketed the money, went on a shopping spree in Gay Paris. Marie didn't like that. Even though she didn't want the necklace, she didn't like that. So she demanded a public trial because they stole this necklace. Well, the monarchy at this point was not really popular. So the worst thing that could happen was her trying somebody for stealing this necklace, when people don't have enough money to eat. So the woman was convicted, sent off to prison, and by this time a lot of the monarchy's followers had deserted them and left the country because they saw the writing on the wall that there was going to be a revolution. So there was. The people revolted, and it all started when they stormed the Bastille in July of 1789. Bastille is a prison in Paris where they kept all the political prisoners and all this kind of thing. And they went in and they broke out all these prisoners and let them free. The king and queen saw the writing on the wall. They packed up the French crown jewels and headed for the border. The new constitution was adopted a couple of years later and didn't sit well with the king, who was kind of working his way towards freedom across the border. And it limited his powers. And he asked for aid from other monarchs in other countries, and they wouldn't give it to him. Because they were afraid if they did that, then, the revolution would spread. So they tried to flee to Austria, Marie's home country, and they are turned back and sent back to Paris. The crown jewels are confiscated, including the Order of the Fleece. Louis and Marie are executed with la guillotine, Madame Guillotine, which was simply invented by a doctor to make death more humane, I guess. So, while all this is going on, a plot is being hatched by this guy, Paul Miette, and a friend of his, Cadet Guillot, who were at one time two prisoners in the Bastille, and they hatch a plot to steal the crown jewels. They're in this place. I assume it's Gare Mobile. I'm not sure if that's the correct pronunciation. But it's in this little kind of fortress. And once this plot hatches, they send some guys out to burglarize this place with just little odds and ends here and there so that it becomes kind of commonplace that this place is getting burgled. They find out that some of the metal bars that are in the room where the crown jewels are not secure. So on September 17, 1792, they rob the place and take the French crown jewels. Now some of the gems are recovered. They're found in people's attics, some buried underneath a tree, things like this. But the French blue disappears. It's not there. Nobody can find it. The next clue we have, and remember this is in 1792, is 8 years later, in 1800, Queen Maria Luisa of Spain has a portrait done by Goya, the artist, and in that painting she is wearing a blue diamond of the correct shape. So people, even though we don't have proof, think that this was the French blue, that somehow it got to Spain, to the royal family in Spain, and she's wearing it in the portrait. Now, if I was her, I wouldn't have had a portrait done.
Yeah.
She's not the prettiest lady on the face of the earth, but then neither am I, so. But anyway, this is the next clue we have 8 years after it disappears that maybe the French blue ends up in Spain. The next clue is in 1812. John Francion, who's a jeweler in London, England, comes into possession of a 44.5 carat sapphire blue diamond. 20 years and 2 days after the disappearance of the French blue, he makes it known he has this blue diamond and it's up for sale. Now, why 22 years and 2 days after it disappears? The statute of limitations on the theft of the diamond is 20 years. So he waits 2 days after the 20 years and says, I've got this blue diamond, I think it's the French blue, anybody interested in it? Okay, so he waits, that way they can't arrest him for having stolen property, right? So Henrik Falls, who's a diamond merchant in the Netherlands, buys this thing from him. The diamond disappears from Falls' collection. Falls is so heartbroken that he dies of grief. The diamond passes to his son, who says that his father died because he lost this diamond. It's gone again. Henrik commits suicide because he can't find it either. It eventually ends up in the collection in 1830, again, many years later, of George IV of England. It's 45 carats and is described as a blue diamond of uncommon hue, and is sold to the king by a guy named Daniel Elias, who's a dealer, diamond dealer in London. Now, sometime before 1900, George sells the diamond to this guy, Henry Philip Hope, for $90,000. Remember, that's a lot of money back then. Now, Hope already owned over 41 diamonds of various colors and cuts, and this is how it became known as the Hope diamond. As soon as he bought it, that's what he called it. And he speculated that the diamond had been originally the French blue, because there was no other blue diamond known to exist. So he said, this has got to be the French blue, that's why he bought it. In 1851, it was shown at a London exhibition and was insured for $1 million. 1851 for $1 million. That's a lot of money. Even to me, that's a lot of money, right now today. Right? So when he died, he wills it to his nephew, who's a banker. His name is Henry Thomas Hope. He did not acquire a diamond without all kinds of problems. He had to go through litigation before the gem could come into his possession, because was it stolen from Falls? Was it not? Well, he finally got legal possession of the diamond, but he died young at the age of 54 of a mysterious unknown illness. The stone passed to his grandson, Sir Francis Hope. Okay? So he became the new owner of the Hope diamond. He was not the richest guy on earth, but enough to attract attention. He had $80,000 a year to live on, which was pretty good in the 1800s. And by the time he was 27, he was already trying to borrow money from other people. He married an American singer named Mae Yohe, which did not sit well with the Hope family. My God, she's a chorus girl. She's an American, which is even worse. And he met her in the States when he was there. He saw her in a play, and I'm not sure if this is a good way to describe what her voice might have been like, but she was nicknamed the girl with the foghorn voice. It makes you wonder, right? So she went to London to star in another play, and that's where they got married in England, because he'd fallen for her, and this was in 1894, and she became Lady May, which the family was shocked, just beside themselves that this would happen, that he would marry, quote, a chorus girl from America, unquote. But because he gambled a lot, he was very far in debt, so they lived on what she earned being an actress on stage. Okay? That shows you what he did with the family fortune, right? So what did he do? He tried to sell off some of the paintings that he had, because he had some really good paintings. And they wouldn't let him sell. His sisters would not let him sell the paintings since they belonged to the family. So they put him on an allowance, and he had to make do with $10,000 a year. This is when most people were making like $100 a year. So 10,000 was not bad. But he squandered the money. They eventually let him sell some of the paintings, and he squandered the money from the sale of the paintings also. And then in 1900, Lady May meets an American sea captain named Captain William Strong. By this time, she's tired of supporting her husband because she wanted him to support her. So she runs away with Captain Strong to Japan. They get divorced in 1910. So they're only married for about 10 years or so. So Lord Francis, she sued him for the diamond. He keeps custody of the diamond. She doesn't get it, which didn't sit too well with her. But she has a replica of it crafted so that she can wear it, and she wore it for the rest of her life. She even went so far as to open an inn in New Hampshire, which she called the Blue Diamond Inn, after the diamond. So you're going to love this. What happens with the Blue Diamond Inn? It burns to the ground shortly after opening. May died in Boston, penniless. Lord Francis has a hunting accident. He loses his leg as a result, and his new wife dies. They were only married a few months, and she dies. So he wants to sell the entire estate because he's so far in debt now that he's not quite sure what he's going to do. So he wants to sell it all and the diamond. Now legally, because he's Lord so-and-so, he had to obtain permission from the Court of Chancery in England and his sisters. He had to do this because they had an interest in part of the estate also. So what happens? They say no, you can't sell it. So in 1898, he requests permission for the sale again. His sisters are against the sale. When they go to the court, they tell him, no, we don't want him to sell it. So again, the court denies his request to sell the estate, including the diamond. So he appeals. The appeal is denied. Now, if nothing else, he's persistent, right? So in 1901, he goes to the House of Lords, who finally agrees to the sale. Now they can overrule the Court of Chancery. So the House of Lords, remember, he's a lord, they agree with him that he can sell this whole thing. He figures he's going to pocket the money. No. All the proceeds from the sale are used to pay off his massive gambling debts, so he pretty much doesn't get anything. The Hope is now sold to a London gem dealer, who in turn sells it to Joseph Frankel and Sons of New York City. They soon went into debt and were forced to sell the stone to pay off creditors. The diamond goes to a guy named Habib in Paris, a gem collector. And once there, the trail of this diamond kind of becomes fuzzy. Nobody's quite sure what happens to the Hope during this period. Now, rumors said that a French diamond expert purchased it. The next said it was a Russian prince bought it. Now, we do know a Russian prince did end up with the blue diamond. And he lent it to an actress, a friend of his, in the Folies Bergère in Paris, so it's back in France again, called Laurence Ledoux. She supposedly wore the diamond on stage. Now, the prince was madly in love with her, but found out that she flirted with other men. So during one of her performances, he charges on stage with a knife and stabs her to death in front of everybody. Okay? In a jealous rage, okay? He later met the same fate. He was stabbed to death and died. The stone now goes to a Greek jeweler who sells it to the Sultan of Turkey. He probably did it very quickly, because by this time people were thinking, this is not a great thing to have. The Greek jeweler and his family, after he sells it, are killed in an automobile accident. Yeah. A lapidary, a guy who fixes, shapes gems, who works for the Sultan, destroys a large pearl while he's trying to cut the whole diamond. Okay? So he's beaten and thrown in prison for doing this. The Sultan's jeweler is later found murdered. His girlfriend has the audacity to find the diamond and wear it one day, so he shoots and kills her. You didn't get my permission to wear this thing, you're gone. The diamond now passes through a sale to some Turkish warriors, who must have been paid pretty good if they could afford to buy this, who sold it very quickly to a man from Spain, who promptly drowned in Singapore. The diamond's next owner was a Turk who also drowned. The diamond now goes to Sultan Abdul Hamid II, who was the Caliph of Israel, Prince of Faithful, Master of the World, etc., etc., etc. You know, they all have these big long titles. Bad things keep happening. Simon Montharides, who is a Greek jeweler, another Greek jeweler, agrees to sell the diamond, and as soon as he agrees to do that, he dies in a car crash. So the Sultan keeps the diamond. He becomes known as Abdul the Damned because he's a despot, and he taxed people $450,000 to pay for the diamond. You know, he buys it, but he's not paying for it, the taxpayers are. So he gives the jewel to his favorite harem wife, whose name is Subaya. The other wives become very jealous because she has this diamond, right? So they start rumors that she's having an affair with somebody else, and he has her executed, even though the rumors were not true. Now, it was during the Sultan's reign that an American, Evelyn Walsh McLean, attends a function at the Turkish court and sees the diamond, and she wants to possess it, but she couldn't get the Sultan to part with it. Okay? Now, she is a Washington heiress. She's married to a guy named Ned McLean, who's the guy who owns the Washington Post newspaper. Okay, so they're fairly well-to-do. The Sultan keeps the gem for years, and he realizes finally that, you know, the peasants do have rights, and he realizes this because they're threatened to stage a coup, you know, and overthrow him. So, political pressure is put on him to make their lives a little better. So he says, okay, but he smuggles the gem to Paris to be sold, figuring if he sells it in France, then they're not going to get their hands on the money, the peasants. So in 1909, they find out about this, and they depose him in a revolution. The proceeds from the sale are seized by the government, so he doesn't get them anyway. They're sold to a guy named Salim Habib, who sells it in turn to a guy named C.H. Rosenbaum. The gem then disappears, only to be rediscovered by estate trustees after it's been sold as costume jewelry. It reappears in France, where it is again seen in 1910 by Evelyn Walsh McLean, the American heiress. They own a newspaper, they own a bunch of gold mines and things like this. So she's determined she wants it. And she goes to her husband, Ned, and talks to him, and he says, well, you know, if you want it, try and get it. He's a millionaire, what does he care? He's got lots of money. So she's in Paris visiting, and the jewel is brought to her room in Paris by a friend of hers named Pierre Cartier, who is, of course, the famous French jeweler. She was stunned by this thing. Seeing it close up, she realized how beautiful this gem was. And he revealed to her that he had seen the Hope before, and it was for sale. And if she wanted it, she could buy it. She said, well, you know, I like it, but I don't like the setting it's in. You know? So he says, well, you know, I can change the setting. And she said, well, no, you know, it's kind of homey in the setting it's in. You know, I really don't want it. So what does he do? He has it reset in a new setting. And he ships it from Paris to Washington, D.C. and said, here, keep this for the weekend and see what you think. So he says, to make it a little more interesting, he says to her, you know, there's a curse on this thing. All these people who have owned it have had bad luck, so, you know, keep it for the weekend, but, you know, we probably really don't want to keep it. But he knew that she was into all this occult stuff. So to her, his curse made it a little more interesting. So, in January 11th, 1911, she purchased the home in its new setting for $180,000, which today would be about $3.5 million. Cartier again warned her that this thing had a curse on it, and she said, for me, bad objects are lucky, unquote. And she found the idea of a cursed gem really exciting. She would own this thing. Well, as soon as she bought it, she started getting warnings from friends. Her mother-in-law said, get rid of it. Don't keep it. May Yohe was still alive at the time. She'd been married to Hope, and she said, you don't want it. Believe me, it's going to bring in nothing but bad luck. Everybody connected with the diamond tried to warn her not to keep it. She wasn't impressed. I don't care. So what happens? So she was kind of eccentric. She once claimed that she wanted to be married while, quote, hanging from my knees from the crosspiece of any well-known church, unquote. She was kind of weird. So she had it reworked as a pendant. Okay? And she had surgery and wore it while she was having surgery. Yeah, really. She wore it while visiting soldiers at the front during World War I. She let others borrow it, hey, Evelyn, can I borrow the diamond? Yeah, sure, take it. Her Great Dane wore it on his collar for a while. Her kids used it as a teething ring. And she had a blessed bride priest just in case, there was, this thing going on. And she made sure that all bases were closed. Now, she always wore the hope when she wasn't lending it to friends as a good luck charm. She wore it constantly. It didn't matter where she was, from surgery to elegant dinner parties. She wore it all the time. People began to know that the Hope Diamond was synonymous with Evelyn Walsh McLean, because they didn't even have to know who she was. If they saw a woman walk in, she's wearing this blue diamond, they knew who it was her, okay? So for the next 20 years, she seemed to own a charmed life. Now she didn't, you're going to like this, she didn't keep the diamond in a vault or a safe. When she wasn't wearing it, she stuffed it in the cushions of her couch. So that's where it was. That's the way she knew where it was. She didn't have to worry about combinations and all this kind of stuff. So there's her with her son. You can see she's wearing the diamond. She took it when she went places with her children, on vacation, entertaining at various mansions that they had throughout the country, on her yacht. She knew all the rich and powerful in Washington and was the center of the city's socialite. She got the reputation of being the town's most exuberant hostess. She hosted Hollywood actors and actresses, presidents, statesmen, senators, you name it. Again, you can see her wearing the thing there. Everybody had a great time. She always had the latest Paris fashions on. She always had the Hope Diamond on. Everybody knew who Evelyn Walsh McLean was. She said she wore it just for show, because she loved being the center of attention. According to her, quote, "It's only when the thing I buy creates a show for those around me that I get my money's worth," unquote. So she got her money's worth with this. And like I said, she was all over Washington. Everybody knew her. She led a very, very, very good life, to a point. She became a morphine addict, eventually. Yeah. Her son, when he was 9 years old, was hit by a car and killed just outside of their house. In 1932, she pawned the diamond to raise money to pay the ransom for the Lindbergh kidnapping. Of course, they never got Charles Lindbergh Jr. back. She eventually did get her money back, and she took the diamond out of pawn, got it back. Her husband, Ned, ran off with another woman. He eventually went mad and convinced himself he was a German spy during the war. He lost his entire newspaper empire, so they lost the Washington Post. They went bankrupt, the newspaper did. In 1941, he died in an insane asylum. So she had to pay off, sell some of their property to pay off his debts. Before he ran off with the other woman, he also was a gambler. So, in 1946, her daughter died of a mysterious overdose of sleeping pills. The family fortunes, of course, shrank once the Washington Post went bankrupt. They didn't have a lot of money. And she said, "What tragedies have befallen me might have occurred had I never seen or touched the Hope Diamond. My observations have persuaded me that tragedies for anyone who lives are not escapable." Because the reporter said, "You're having all this bad luck because of the Hope Diamond, right?" And she said, "No, it could have been anything." And there's the hope, there's the picture that you showed. She wore it every day since she required it, and her will stated after she passed away in 1947 that none of her jewels, including the Hope, could be sold for 20 years after her death. They would go into a trust for her grandchildren. But this didn't deter people who wanted to buy it. Harry Winston was one of them. Bishop Fulton Sheen, remember he used to be on TV? Yeah. He acted kind of as a go-between to try and convince the Hope diamond owners, the McLean family, that they should sell this diamond to Harry Winston because they were in such bad financial shape, they really needed the money, and it would behoove them to sell this thing. So it didn't take 20 years for Harry Winston to acquire the Hope Diamond. He offered immediately a fair purchase price for the diamond, and they needed the money desperately, So they sold it to him. He said, I'll go you one better. I'll take the Hope and I'll take everything else off your hands. So he bought their entire gem collection, Winston did, including the 94.8 carat Star of the East diamond, a 15 carat Star of the South, a 9 carat green diamond, which are also rare, a 31 carat McLean diamond, and paid $1 million for the whole thing, which effectively got the family out of debt. And actually, $1 million was not bad for that entire collection. Now, he no sooner owned it than he sent it on a 9-year tour of the United States to raise money for charity. You know, they would charge an admission price. People would come in, they would see this diamond, and all the money they got would go to charity, whatever the charity happened to be. Now, the associates begin to shun him because he owned the Hope diamond. You know, we don't want any of this bad luck to run off on us, kind of thing. Okay? And he always liked to tell a story about what he called the airplane incident. Well, he and his wife, McLean and his, Winston and his wife, never traveled together, okay, because they were filthy rich, and they thought if they went on the same airplane and something happened, they both died, what would happen to their kids? So they would take separate airplanes. His wife and he were going somewhere or other, and she was on one plane, he was on another. Well, the plane that she was on taxis out to take off, but goes back to the terminal. The pilot makes an announcement that they're having mechanical problems. So she gets talking to the gentleman sitting in the chair next to her, and he asked her, you know, where are you from, what's your name? And she said, you know, Margaret Winston or whatever it was. And he said, oh, are you any relation to Harry Winston, the guy who owns the Hope Diamond? And she says, yeah, that's my husband. He got up and left the plane. They fixed the mechanical problem, the plane takes off, she gets there, okay. Meanwhile, Harry is on another plane, which is in the air, and he's talking to a gentleman sitting next to him, and the guy next to him finds out he owns the Hope Diamond, and it's like, oh God, you know, are we going to make it to where we're going? Well, they did. They both made it. They were reunited. Everything was fine. But Harry loved to tell that story because, you know, he said, it's all because of this diamond. You know, people didn't want to sit with us. They didn't want to be on the same plane. You know, they were. So, on November 10th, 1958, Winston Jewelers donated the Hope Diamond to the Smithsonian Institute in Washington. Instead of sending it via special courier, he sent it in a plain brown paper wrap package in the United States mail. And there it is. Okay. It cost $145 to mail it, $2.44 for postage, the rest for insurance. And there's the package it was sent. I like all the insurance stamps on there. But you notice that Harry Winston, New York, New York. And I love the address, just to Smithsonian Institution, Washington, D.C. That's it. You know, no zip codes, no nothing like that. Please deliver 11:45 a.m. I think I even have the precise time on there. And there it is, out of the setting. In 75, it was removed from its setting and weighed. It was found to weigh 45.52 carats. The color, as they did a spectral analysis on it, was attributed to trace amounts of boron in the stone. Another unique characteristic was discovered when subjected to shortwave ultraviolet light. The blue diamond glowed, most blue diamonds glowed a light blue. When put under the same ultraviolet, the Hope glowed red. No other blue diamond in the world does this, which is interesting. So, because now that the Hope is in the Smithsonian, many superstitious people believe that it's the blame for everything that happens in Washington, D.C. From affairs to bad political moves to unanswered questions about political appointments. The Hope quickly became a premier attraction of the Smithsonian, attracting more visitors than any other of its museums. The stone has left the Smithsonian only 4 times. In 1962, the Louvre in Paris for an exhibition called 10 Centuries of French Jewelry. In 1965, to Johannesburg, South Africa, to the Rand Easter Show. In 1984, back to Harry Winston Jewelers, so that it could be cleaned and that kind of thing. And in 1996, again, back to Winston Jewelers, again for cleaning and minor restoration. Now, in 1975, there was a movie done about the Hope called The Legendary Curse of the Hope Diamond. The lead part was played by a man named Bradford Sterling, and only 6 months later, he died of open heart surgery at the age of 50. He didn't even have the darn thing, right? Now, claims have been made that there have been other diamonds carved from the Hope, and one of them, well, actually there were two. They were called the Brunswick Blue 1 and the Brunswick Blue 2, that were owned by Queen Charlotte of Brunswick, Germany at one time, and they're both blue diamonds. But they're not sure that they're part of what had been what was the French blue and is now the Hope, because when they put them under fluorescence, they should have glowed red if they were part of the Hope, but they glow blue. So we believe that they are completely different diamonds. They were called the Brunswick Blue, and one was 6.5 carats. And which brings us to this. You might wonder, what does that have to do with it? Well, in 1997, Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet were in Titanic. And in it, her fiancé gives her this big, magnificent blue diamond called the Heart of the Ocean. Pour de la mer. This led a lot of people to resurrect the belief that the Hope Diamond had been on the Titanic. And that's why the Titanic sank. The Hope Diamond was never on the Titanic. In April 1912, when it sank, it was in Washington, D.C. with Evelyn Hope, Walsh McLean. So we know it was not on there. But there was always this myth that it was on the Titanic, so this just reinforced people's ideas that it was, but it never was. And there's the Titanic. Okay? Now, there have also been many imitations. Asprey and Gerard, as a result of the Titanic movie, created a real Heart of the Ocean diamond necklace. The result was a 170-carat heart-shaped sapphire, not a diamond, with 65 diamonds surrounding it, each weighing 30 carats each. It was worn by Celine Dion, the singer, at the Oscar presentation when she sang the song from the movie Titanic. And it was appraised at $2.2 million. Henry Winston jewelers, also inspired by the movie, made their own Heart of the Ocean diamond, but used a genuine blue diamond. They had to search forever to find another blue diamond. Wasn't the same as the Hope, it was a blue diamond. And this one was worn by Gloria Stewart at the Oscars. She's the one who played the older Rose in the movie. And that one was appraised for $20 million. And that's not even the Hope. Now, why did Cartier tell Evelyn that this could have been cursed? Well, folklore has it that diamonds were thought to have spirits that inhabited them. Spirits get upset at being sold or traded. And how many times was that being sold or traded, right? If it happened often, the spirits left the stone and evil was allowed to enter the stone. So anyone who possessed it would have bad luck. Evil could be avoided, however, if it was given to someone as a gift, not sold. So if this had been given as a pledge of friendship and love, it probably wouldn't have had the curse on it. The Hope, of course, was traded and sold too many times. That's why there was a curse on the thing. Now, what were the common factors of all the people who owned this thing? Well, they were all rich. Obviously, they had to be to own it. They all liked to collect jewelry. The women were bigger than life. Evelyn Walsh McLean, Marie Antoinette. They had highly visible public lives. And all the men who owned it were rich and powerful. Now, the curator of the Smithsonian was asked if he was worried about the fact that there was a curse on this thing. And he says, the curse is a fascinating part of the story of the Hope Diamond that has helped to make the diamond as famous as it is. But as a scientist, as a curator, I don't believe in curses. He did say, though, that he believed in all the tourists that were brought in to see it. But again, they don't pay to see it if it's in the Smithsonian. Because technically it doesn't belong to the Smithsonian, either it belongs to us. The people of the United States own the Hope Diamond. So the curse debunked. Is there a curse or isn't there? I'll tell you why. There probably a lot of people think there isn't. Tavernier didn't steal the diamond, he bought it. Remember the legend was that he stole it from the head of an idol? No. It was a loose gem. It was not the head of an idol at any time, and he didn't steal it, he bought it. and took it back to France. Well, he know that if he stole something, remember he's a dealer in gems, if he stole a diamond, who was going to deal with him after that? Nobody. So he knew this, his business was staked on this whole thing, that he buy this diamond, so that's why he bought it. He did not steal it. The stone did not come from an idol. We do know that. It was part of a loose bunch of gems that Aurangzeb just kind of had laying around, and he got it for a fair price. And if you go today, this book that he wrote, his guidebook to gemstones, is still in publication. And you can go in there and you can see that sketch that I showed you way back when that he made of the Hope Diamond, and that's in the book. Okay? He was not torn apart by wild dogs. We know that's true. He regularly sold diamonds and lived to be 84 years old, was never bitten by a dog in Russia, but he did die in Russia on the way to India to try and recoup his fortune. Marie Antoinette was guillotined because she wore the diamond. No, she never did. Remember, the golden fleece was worn only by the king. So the people didn't care that she wore this thing. Louis XVI and Marie were beheaded because of the diamond. No, they were beheaded because they were despots, and they, took all the money and they lived their lavish lifestyle and would give everything to the peasants. So the peasants revolted and got rid of them. Sultan Abdul Hamid II, remember he's the one who had the gem and had one of his wives killed because she had the thing and all that. He said to have lost the Ottoman Empire because of the diamond. No, he lost it because he was a lousy ruler. Of course, that may have been because of the diamond, who knows, right? The Hope family lost their fortune because of the diamond, though they lost their fortune because Francis Hope gambled away all their money. Pierre Cartier made up the curse. Now, many people believe that he did make up the curse to entice Evelyn Walsh McLean into buying this thing, because he knew that she was into all this kind of weird stuff. So we believe that he made up the curse based on the fact that all these people had had bad luck around him. Evelyn Walsh McLean maintained that the only reason people knew about the bad luck that had happened to all these other people was because they were rich and famous. She said if they were just ordinary people, nobody would have known. Well, no ordinary people would have owned the Hope Diamond, right? And there it is. Now, once he reset it, Cartier, as a pendant, she, meaning Evelyn, was still hesitant until, of course, he told her about the curse, and then she bought the thing. Winston donated the diamond to rid himself of the curse, Harry Winston. No, he didn't. He donated it to the Smithsonian because he wanted it to be the focal point of a newly established gem collection that the Smithsonian was trying to get together. And he felt by donating, of course, the world's most famous diamond, that might serve to make others donate gems. And the gem collection at the Smithsonian is second to none. It even outshines the crown jewels of England. So it's the top jewel collection in the world at this point. Okay. And there she is. Now that's in the old setting. It's since been put into a new setting, and I'll get to that. The United States is cursed because of the diamond. Now, since he donated it to the Smithsonian and now it technically belongs to all of us, many blame misfortune that befalls the country. This includes everything from the World Trade Center collapse to the space shuttle's disaster to the fact that Obama was elected twice as president. That's not my comment. It's other people's. However, the Smithsonian, of course, sees it as good luck. Since it's been housed there, the National Gem Collection has grown tremendously in size and international stature, so that now it's the #1 gem collection in the world, as I mentioned. And it is the #1 attraction of the Smithsonian every year. Now there's the Hope in its old setting. Here it is in the new setting. I am not fond of that. I like this one better because the Hope is the center of the thing. Here it kind of gets lost, and there it almost looks like it's heart-shaped, but it's not. It's the rectangular. But the way the thing is made, it makes it look heart-shaped. Now, last time I did this program, there was a lady in the audience who had seen it in the new setting, and she says, oh, I like that so much better. I'll have to go and look for myself, because judging by that picture, I really do not like that. I like the plain Jane setting that was in before, if you can call all those diamonds plain Jane, right? It does look smaller, yeah. No, it's the same size. It's the 45.52 carats that it was before. It looks smaller. You're right, it looks smaller. And to me, it's just gaudy. So we're left with a major question. Is it possible for an object like a diamond to be cursed? Now, it seems like a lot of people, of course, who own this have fallen bad luck. And we know about it, of course, because they're rich and famous. But is it all coincidence? You know, that many people who own this thing would have that much bad luck. Do our country's problems stem from the fact that we own this thing now? Will we ever be able to prove that this gem is the bringer of evil and misfortune? Who knows, because even today it's a mystery. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask? Who's going to run up and buy it?
When you said that it couldn't even be destroyed by acid, they must have took another diamond and put it in acid and touched it, right?
Yeah.
I had to ask that.
You gonna go home and try it?
No.
I don't have any diamonds, but I do. I've got one. I've got my great aunt's engagement ring that came from England like 150 years ago. That's the only one I've got, and I'm not about to throw that in a vat of acid just to test the theory. But if you ever do get to the Smithsonian, go see it. It is impressive, or at least it used to be. Like I said, I'll have to go look at the new setting and see what it looks like now. Yeah.
What was part of the fleece? What were the yellow stones?
The fleece had a white diamond in it. It had the French blue or the hope, and the red, I believe, was a ruby. The rest of the other things around it were white diamonds. Some of the ones that were in the lamb that looked a little yellowish were like slightly yellow topaz colored diamonds. Not quite topaz, because topaz is a little darker. But they were diamonds. Yeah.
Was the shape only changed 3 times then?
As far as we know, yeah, because it was the original in India, which he described as being triangular, roughly triangular in shape. Then we know it was cut down when it went to France, and then it was cut down again somewhere along the way. So now it's like 45 carats, and it started out as 112. So a lot of it's gone.
Did you know that it's for sale now in the Smithsonian catalog?
Yeah, copies.
Copies, yeah. I'll buy a copy and tell everybody you own the Hope Diamond. I'm not sure I'd even want to buy a copy, to tell you the truth. I'm not superstitious, but
I think you are.
yeah, I draw the line at some things.
When the hope was being, cut down by other jewelers, would the chips have value?
I suppose it depends on how big they were and what happened to them when they were being cut. Because sometimes the chips are destroyed when they're being cut. Other times they're not. They're made into smaller ones. But as far as I've been able to tell, that they didn't do anything with the chips except maybe the Brunswick Blue 1 and 2. But like I said, when they tested them, they didn't fluoresce like the Hope did, so they don't think they were part of the Hope Diamond.
The interesting part, the Smithsonian is still selling the one better than
Yeah.
Not that new thing.
Well, that one lady is the only person I know who has seen the new setting, who said they like it. Everybody else says it kind of detracts from the diamond. It's more like they want you to see the setting rather than the diamond itself. But I suppose a lot of people, when I was looking at it, there was a line, a huge line, just to walk past that thing and see
The
it.
history, not the
Yeah.
visual right today.
The comment that I heard mostly was, boy, it's a lot smaller than I thought. It doesn't look all that impressive.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't, for something that famous. But hey, it's the Hope Diamond, and there's only one. So it's unique. Any other questions? So you're all going to go running down to Washington, right, to see this thing? My niece lives just outside of Washington, and I go to the Smithsonian usually when I go visit her, and I want to go down there in the spring so I can go down and see it, and check it out, yeah. My favorite place is the Air and Space Museum, but what do I know? Okay, well, thank you. I hope you learned a little bit from the diamond.
Well, I promised you folks a good story, but boy, that was a good story. We've got refreshments, including some cookies that Irene made that are diamond shape.
That brings to mind a
Give
story.
her the credit.
Are they blue?
Let me tell you this one just quickly, since he talked about the diamond shaped cookies. One of the other programs I do is Lizzie Borden. And the first time I did, I said to my mother, I gotta make something in the way of refreshments for this thing. She says, don't worry about it, I'll make it. So I come home the night of the program, get ready to go, and she made cookies. She had a cookie cutter in the shape of an axe, and she made the blade red. I think they liked that better than my program.
I guess I'll let see all what's
Well, I'm working on a couple more. Because I teach up at SUNY retirees, and every semester they want something different. And it's like, oh, what am I going to do now? So I keep coming up with things. Every year our district club does a trivia night. So this next semester I was thinking, what am I going to do? It's only 4 weeks. And I thought, why don't I do one called Trivia with Cheryl? And I can take all those trivia questions and just go in my class and see how much it's going. So I don't have to prepare for this.
Where were you a librarian?
I started out at the Mid-York Library System in Utica, and I worked there for 10 years. Then I worked at the Utica Public Library for a year, and then the Dunham Library in Whitesville for 24 years and 11 months. Right now, I'm working part-time at the library in New York Health.